We're not going to balance it out. Okay, so welcome. This is the Human Services Committee. The date of this meeting is Tuesday, June 10th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. in the Selectmen's Conference Room. So, roll call. Committee member Suzanne Walsh.
Present.
New committee member, and welcome, Patrick Downey.
Present.
Committee member Kevin Matthews.
Here.
Committee member Wendy Crocker.
Present.
And I, committee member and chair Cheryl Powell. I'm here. We are expecting to have Missy Kay, our clerk, arrive tonight, and Dr. Kimberly Crocker-Crowther said that she would call in at 5:30. She finishes with her last patient. But since we have quorum, we will go ahead and get started. We've done the roll call. I don't think I'm missing anybody. So, we had a meeting with the appointments committee, and that actually went pretty well. We did prep for it, and Suzanne, you were there.
Mm-hmm.
Wendy came as well. Missy Kay came as well. I was a little worried about quorum, but Cynthia Lovell was there, and she said not to worry about it. Because usually you can't have more than 3 in anything. So, anyway, I think it went extremely well, and I believe we talked about what had been happening over the last 3 years, and also some of the reasons for the delay, i.e. people like yourself, Kevin, who had applied and had to wait like 10 months because they were dealing with the ad hoc committees, which is not to downplay the importance of the ad hoc committees, but it meant that people who had applied, and some decided they didn't want to apply anymore. Patrick, you got held up as well. Thank you very much to both of you for your patience, because you're both very welcome. Glad to have you guys. I think there were 2 others that went by the wayside, but that's okay. We now have a full committee. Waiting. Oh, I got it turned off. No, I don't have it turned off. Oh, that's okay. Sometimes if I'm at a previous meeting, I turn it off. I forget to turn it on. I'm wondering why a call hasn't come through. So what we need to do is to really, turn up the engine a little bit. So I know several times I've mentioned people taking certain roles in certain areas. We had already assigned them with a previous committee here, Human Services Committee, but those people had decided that they were going to move on. It became rough on them because of their time commitments and restraints. So what I have tried to do is look at people's interests. Suzanne, you had, down here to collect you today, so there, that's done. That you've done the senior center, and you've been doing some of the crime with the police and that, and covering them and getting their information. So I'm hoping that at the August meeting, we can have we had the 30 entities who wanted to come before. I have contacted them. Most of them can't do July because it's too close to the July 4th. So they will, and I get that. Families come down. We all know. Cape Cod, 4th of July, busy. So we're going to do it in the August meeting, and we want to have that to be a big meeting and start putting plans together. And we'll do the same for the September meeting. And then for the at that point, I've already started putting it together, what we're doing, and I'm keeping a log of what we're doing. So at the end of September, the last meeting in September, I'd like to be in a position where we can, that's our goal, to be able to present our ideas to the town council. Kevin, you put together a letter for the town council, and a lot of those things were extremely pertinent, and thank you. But what we want to do, I think we've all agreed what we'd like is, I've had few town councilors who have called me and asked me about it as well, post the appointments committee meeting. And the what do we want with a human services person? And we want to define precisely what that is. I've got a number of things down, but that's one of the things I want to work on tonight, because I know what I've got down, but I'm one voice, one vote. I would say that in other committees, because I don't want to influence. I want the whole committee to work as a team, which is very
Do you
important.
mean of us or our go-to person that they're thinking?
Well, we were trying to define
Okay.
how we feel this process would be with this go-to person. Basically, we would be underneath that. We would be supportive of that individual for the
Right.
town, which we'll get into that
Right.
more later. But that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. But also, one of the things was, the few times I brought it up before, nobody actually identified the areas they were interested in focusing on. Hey, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome, Missy. So I was just saying, and you were at that meeting, how it went, and how I personally think that meeting with the appointments committee went pretty well.
Yes.
And what we're planning on doing is putting together a proposal for the proposed human services individual, and how we feel that would work out. And that's one of the
You're
things.
talking about the position
The
that
position,
you'd like.
yeah, that we'd like to see if they could fill with somebody. And it doesn't have to be a full-time position.
You know what, I'm just gonna tell you, you better go for the full-time.
Yeah, because then we can bring it back.
Yeah, you know what, because you get one opportunity, and you better start with the full-time, and then start with the full-time and settle for the part-time. But if you don't go.
You're absolutely right.
Just saying.
Yeah, I put together a page and a half, but I didn't want to go over it tonight because I wanted to get all the input from everybody here and get started on this. The goalpost is to August and September meetings. We want to have, that's the second Tuesday of each month. And Patrick, you look on the town councilor to verify location and all that, right?
No.
Town councilor is where our meetings should be posted.
Okay.
Sometimes
Town
there's
calendar.
town calendar. What did I say? Council.
Council.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm
Town
going.
calendar.
What is that?
I'm sorry. I was thinking about the town council. What can I say? So the town calendar. I know for the longest time I would go on to the committee boards and committees, and I'd go down and I'd check the on that part. But then they started encouraging people to go to the town calendar, and that's where everything's listed. Worst case scenario, say no, because a few times we've been caught out on it. If it's not posted on the calendar, you go up to the very top where it has the things given to the town clerk. Click here, click the here, and 9 times out of 10 it's in there. It's a little bit like going down the yellow brick road, but you eventually get to Emerald City, right? So,
What time did you start? Excuse me, I just need
Oh,
it for the,
we started about 32 past.
okay, that's fine.
Yeah, about, because yes, we did, because I've had 5:30 on that clock, and she had 2 minutes left.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we waited.
Okay, so we'll go with 5:32 for the purposes
Well,
of the minutes.
put down 5:30, because it was her time, 5:30, and that was
Okay.
digital.
Okay,
For years, that clock was 5 minutes ahead, 10 minutes behind, and went back and forth, and we could never really trust it, so we always go with camera. So, it started at 5:30, and Wendy was here for it, thank
hey,
you.
wait a second, no
Yeah.
getting here before me, just saying.
Every once in a while.
Yeah, that's,
Well, we appreciate that.
So can I just go back to the meeting 1 second, the
Yeah.
appointments committee meeting that you had? Other things that we talked about was having a second meeting every month. Was that discussed and how that would turn out?
It was, and that's still one of the things we'll have to put in the proposal.
Okay.
Things happen slowly. What,
I thought it was mixed.
well, just to, a little additional clarification, apparently there is some verbiage and some regulation
Yes, the
or
ordinance.
something
Yeah.
that does not allow you to have a second meeting, just like, because you want to have a second meeting, if you will. That's probably a little more cavalier in the answer to your question, but there is actually a process that we would have to go through. That's what I got.
Yes.
In order to make that happen, and I didn't get any real from anybody. So I would say there was not like a whole lot of support for that concept, and it's probably, you'd have to have an incredible reason to want to make that happen, only because now with all the the potential additional cost for, video, all that kind of stuff. So we
They
might
did.
want, yeah, it was like, yeah, okay, we hear you.
But the
Is
thing
that
is,
kind of?
No, I think Counselor Clark, I think she did a good job of explaining
she
that.
did.
Yeah.
There's a way around it though, and that is to continue with the subcommittees, because you don't have
That's-
quorum
and
and
that's
you
what they
don't have to post
suggested.
it. That's where I was going with this. So it's kind of, there's gonna be what we really, the things that we feel that we can go for, we go a little bit higher, but there's also gonna be some things that are wish list stuff.
It's almost like, as we've discussed in the past, the importance of phase one, phase two, if you will.
Yep.
And so with reference to the second meeting of the month, that it would be advantageous to start with a subcommittee and have like a
Yeah.
true foundation that when you want to request the potential to have a second meeting, you can say, well, we've had this subcommittee for 6 months and blah, 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 and we really think it'd be advantageous to have a second meeting during the month. But without that, I don't think that's gonna happen.
So what I have is, I don't have in the stuff that I have put together so far, phase one, phase two, phase three, but I actually like that. I have
But
within 1
it's the way
year,
I just-
by the end of the
yeah.
year, we would hope to be able to show.
Yeah.
But I like doing phase one, phase two, phase three. The second meeting, but what we can do is the subcommittees.
And you could put that in the proposal where our initial concept is to put together a subcommittee to do A, B, and C, and depending on the results of that, we will maybe in the future request, a second.
So let me see if I get this right. So a subcommittee could be only 3 members of the group, correct?
Yes, you can't.
And there could be no
four.
communication with the other members until the actual meeting 2 weeks later.
Or whatever it is. The
Right.
subcommittee
Monthly
reports to
meeting.
the, to
Right.
the, to the main
Okay.
meeting. Of course, you can always communicate, that's gonna be Kim.
And that it's not held in
Hey,
the
Kim,
town hall,
I'm so
right?
sorry,
It
my
has to be
last
held
name
off.
was late, I apologize.
not a problem. I'm just gonna make sure the volume's up. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, just fine.
Okay, so if we could mark that Dr. Kimberly Parker Crowder has joined us, delayed due to a patient being late. Just for the record, Kim, so we have it. So where we are, we're talking about having met with the appointments committee, and we do now have camera, but at the same time, what I want to do is to turn up the heat on getting this proposal for the town council. We can now do that now that we know that we have some, well, from what's transpired. So the goal here is to, one, we can use subcommittees. I'm trying to not go through the whole 15 minutes. We can use subcommittees without having to, we can't have the second meeting yet, but we're gonna do, Missy has made an excellent suggestion that in this, what we propose, it'd be a phase one, phase two, phase three. So a second meeting would be probably phase three, and that's by putting in there by phase three, we hope to, but I have it at the end of the year, but I like phase three. We hope to have shown that this subcommittee has achieved this, this, and this, and been invaluable in these various different ways. And we would like to now make it official, because what we have to do is to justify the extra work that goes into changing the ordinances. And we may not be able to justify it, but we're doing our goals here and what we want to do, and we have to show what we're going to do. Another thing you missed was, Kim, for a couple of years now, I've been saying to people, let's try to divvy some of this up and on specialties, and so people can focus on certain things and then report to the committee. Suzanne is one who has done that. She's dealing with the senior center and crime with the police departments and things like that, and even met with the fire departments, I believe, as well. The timeline here is over the next 2 months meetings, July and August, in August and September, we're going to have we're going to bring those groups in that we're going to come before, 30 of them, who are kind of on hold for image until we had this plan, and we had met with the appointments committee and also met with the town manager and the assistant town manager with our town council liaison. By the way, our town council liaison, Betty Lucky, did call, and she extends her apologies. She's with the Civic Association tonight.
So can I ask a question? Did you get feedback around the meeting that we went to?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Okay.
So it's very positive. I mean, there's been some negative to it, but yes, we have had feedback.
So can you share that?
Well, I'm doing that now.
Okay.
Okay, so kind of designing this around that. So we want to have those groups together and try to put a more formal plan together over the August and September meetings, and hopefully by the end of September to have that proposal ready for the town council and
When
also
you
the
say
appointments.
put the plan together,
What they wanted is for us to put together a more proposal. Now, the main thing we were talking about there is we're in here, is that one of the things we wanted to do is to have a human services individual with the
right,
town.
yeah, a
That we
staff
should work
member.
under. And
Yeah, whatever you
that's
wanna
where
call it.
a staff member, and that's where it would make sense, because we would have this committee and also branching. It's kind of like branches. The person there, this committee, the various other entities, and it expands and covers the community.
Well,
And can you, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
where I'm having a little disconnect is, okay, so we're going to figure out what the appropriate job description is for the individual that we would propose that would head up this division. So I'm wondering, if you're encouraging or putting forth like, okay, you're gonna bring these other agencies together, what is their role as it relates to our discussions as to what we think the correct individual should be and their job description? I don't get
Well, that's
that-
one of the
that
things we're trying to put
connect.
together tonight. I like that
Okay.
to be, that's one of the things I'd like to achieve tonight, us to define to an extent what the role is. We're gonna have to tweak it, and that's gonna be,
And this is, I just want to share, this is phase one. Phase one is
We're
qualifications.
gonna call it the
beginning
initial
of phase one.
This is phase one,
Yeah.
okay. All right, phase one, got it.
Phase one
Launching pad.
equals.
But this person we're looking for, couldn't they even be somebody that's in one of these departments already?
No,
Why not?
No?
because the probability, if you're at, we'll just talk about that for 30 seconds. I don't think that, and I'm a newbie compared to, those of you that live in that world. I don't know that you could pluck someone out of, I'll just say the police department, even though they have a lot of exposure to a lot of the different issues that this committee deals with. I don't know that if you were to look at their resume, that primarily you two and Kim could look at their resume and say, what we are proposing would be the appropriate person to head up this area. I don't know that you would have all of those specific qualities. Not that there isn't somebody wonderful, but their discipline, their employment discipline is not, this committee it's only a percentage
That's right.
of what their daily life is at the job. And whether it's the police department or the fire department, I would struggle with being able to say that you could, maybe like in your world or Kim's world, you could find that individual that could come to the table with all of the qualities that you would want to, drop into that position. I guess one of the problems is there's not going to be anyone to train that person. Is that agreed?
That's why there's
Well-
gonna be a whole group of, get the whole groups, that's why I said, be one person down to us,
I-
branching
But
out.
you know what, if you were to hire me, I don't want I want to be able to come to, I would say, I'll just use me as an example. I want to know that my qualifications are at a level, sure, you have modifications, you have adjustments, but I have enough of a background to be able to hit the ground running and then adjust everything to the community and the specific the problems as they relate to the community. And I struggle a little bit where you're gonna find that individual if you don't have the correct mindset.
But let's face it, everybody brings that's one of the reasons we're all here, because everybody brings something different to the table. And I'm gonna continue to use your example of you. One of the reasons someone like you would be a good candidate in many ways would be because of your municipal background and decades of experience on bringing a community together.
Decades.
Well, it is decades, is it not?
Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
is.
So
Not that many decades, but
so
yes, she's
nobody's
correct.
going to fill that. I don't think they'd ever find anyone that would fill all the boxes. It's finding somebody who can fill most of them.
I think we're
You
putting the
can't-
cart before the
We
horse
are,
here.
we
We shouldn't
are.
be talking about person, we should talk about qualifications. What we're
That's
looking for
exactly
the
what I want.
person who's gonna take this position, here are the things you need to be good at. Community
Yes.
organizing.
Yes,
You know,
I totally agree.
let's go ahead and get those things down.
Yep.
We'll get to who it's gonna be later.
But my point is.
It's not us who would decide.
If,
Correct.
my point is, if you're going to look at bringing these other agencies in as part of the process, what are you gonna ask them?
I don't think they're part of this process.
They're not.
That's not what you said when you was talking about bringing these agencies in to participate.
What things they bring to the table and where they find their weaknesses are. And to a large extent, we already have had that information. Or we could wait until afterwards and wait till there's if they decide to go that route.
With, you know what, you
I think the timing of it makes more sense to do it after.
I
Okay,
agree,
that makes sense.
you bring up
That's-
a great point, it's about the qualifications. I would suggest that you put all of that together and then reach out to these agencies and say, this is what we think would be the appropriate job description.
What's your input?
What do you, how can it work with you? I mean, if you wanna go that far.
The danger in that is that if we were to put out to all these agencies before it's been decided to even have this person or not, that it kind of puts a bug in their ear that this may be a possibility and
you'd
it
have
could
to
cause
be-
problems.
You would have to be careful, you could, you should choreograph it just like, where these are considerations that the committee is putting together. Our wish list
Or
is.
maybe we take the opportunity to have a subcommittee on it, because we already have two neighbors that are already doing this. We have Falmouth Human Services and we have Mashpee Human Services. So I think it
Why
makes sense.
reinvent the wheel?
That's right.
Yeah.
See what
But-
needs that it meets.
Why don't we, if we're thinking of questions, the qualifications that we need, why don't we use the people, say the police department, right? So be in the police department to come up with the guidelines of what we're looking for. If it's from the police department, then they
Wait.
bring things to the table too.
Go back a bit, come up with the what? The guidelines
To
for,
whatever we're creating, the questions
Yeah.
or whatever, the specific qualifications we need or want.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we use whatever agency it is to come up with those?
See,
But I think she's right.
I disagree.
It's the agencies you're suggesting.
Because they've already
Yes.
formed it. And then we could fine tune it. If we find a particular agency that we really want to hear from them, then if it's, say it's the police department, we can go to them specifically. But I think when we look at like Mashpee Human Services, they have one person and we have different needs in our community, but it would be neat to hear more about their model and how they serve.
That's more of a one-on-one thing. Human Services Committee of one town is talking to the Human Service Committee of another. I think if you throw into all the agencies around town, 25, 30 people, you'll get 25, 30 different responses,
That's
and
true.
that's not good.
That's true.
So
So,
I
and
think,
yeah.
I think your plan is correct. If we're doing phase one, which is what are we looking for in a leader, let's get those qualifications down and a whole bunch of lists, and then if a subcommittee wants to reach out to Bourne, Mashpee, Falmouth, and hey, we're looking for qualifications, this is what we think, how did you guys do it? And then we can have it.
But to Wendy's point, they have established, successful staff.
50 years in Falmouth.
No,
It's
I know,
not new
but
to
that's
them,
what I'm saying.
you know?
I'm saying, go to
Use
the.
their job descriptions.
Well, Plymouth as well. I mean,
Okay,
yeah,
take all three, and there's gonna be some commonality
Yes.
amongst them, whether it's, in your minimum qualifications or even just in the descriptor of what the job is. So you got three great candidates. So you take the three
Yeah.
and combine them and create.
So what I'm going to suggest, I like the idea of the subcommittee, because remember because one of the things that's difficult is when you meet only once a month, it's difficult to, especially when you're waiting to get quorum, it really held things up. But like I said, I really want to light a fire under it now.
And you don't wanna
So
lose the momentum that you've gained.
that's right, exactly. Well, I want to increase the momentum.
Oh, I'm sure of that.
So, we had the subcommittee for putting together the letter and
The initial proposal, right?
the initial
That was
proposal, yeah.
Weren't you three on that subcommittee? The
So I
initial
would say that
proposal?
why don't we, I would say with that subcommittee, unless somebody else wants to go on it, with that subcommittee, I mean, I've already been to Plymouth. I've also spoken with Falmouth and Mashpee, but that was, over a year ago. I would say we each take one, and then we meet with the subcommittee, and we find out the pros and cons, what we want to pluck out of each, and how we then try to tailor it to Barnstable.
And you have to remember, things are expanding too. Somebody
Yeah.
who was perfect for a job 10 years ago, you're gonna be looking for a different type now, or a different person.
That's true.
Correct, when it comes to stuff like social media and things like that.
And people
Exactly.
can only relate to what they know.
Mhm.
So you can't expect somebody who's had no exposure to be on top of everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things that it'll ink its way.
So I would suggest that we have that, and unless we want to form a different subcommittee, but it sounds to me like, we can already do that. Melinda, I know you have some restrictions on weekends because you still have young family. Are you still okay with that on that subcommittee?
I guess it depends on when we meet, sure. I mean,
Well, I think Kevin and I have been, we were able to accommodate. It's just a matter if that time doesn't work, we find another time. Kevin, are you still okay with that?
Sure, just Sundays I try not to do, that's my church day and my day with my wife, where we both have the day off.
If that coincides with your Sunday.
Okay, so it sounds like it's gonna be on a Saturday or, I don't know if Fridays work for people, but,
Fridays could work, Saturdays don't work.
okay, then we'll make it on a Friday. Does that work for you, Kevin?
Uh,
At a certain time?
I'll make something work.
Okay,
Wendy, you probably have, because you've been to Falmouth,
Yes,
you
I've
probably.
been there too.
Oh,
Yeah.
But with that said, you both probably have quite a bit of knowledge about how it all goes together. I know you said they have X amount of staff and all that kind of stuff, and it's a no-brainer to go up on their website, the
Yeah.
town
Exactly
of
right.
Falmouth. You go, to human resources, and you just pull the job descriptions for
Yeah.
whatever the job titles that you collectively think are the right ones, whether it's, I think they have a human services manager.
they have a human service director.
Director,
A director?
And then
Okay.
she oversees, they also have a team of clinicians. That's not what we'd be looking
Right,
for,
right.
but she
you
also
know,
has
you
the.
know that is what I'm saying, yeah.
I met with them, I met with her like a month ago, so I have a lot of notes from that.
So-
But you could collectively decide,
Yeah.
based just on what you know sitting here, like the right kind of direction to go in without
Yeah.
spending a lot of time
That makes
reviewing
sense.
the clinician's job descriptions or
Yes.
even the manager job description, but also in the same line of thought is it will tell you what the salary range is, because you're gonna need to know that in your
Well,
proposal.
We already know from the appointments committee what that proposal is. Seth actually mentioned that, so.
Okay, what he mentioned,
Mhm.
when I was here.
Yeah.
Okay, what he mentioned, my suggestion is that
And which is valuable.
you can either say graciously, you know what, you were right. Or, no, you were horribly wrong. I mean, whatever, but I think that it would
I see where
be,
you're going.
it would be a good idea to validate, I mean, he was
The
using a
range.
ballpark number.
Yeah.
And you're talking, you know, salary rate and benefits and all that kind of stuff, and Falmouth is under potentially a different union and all that kind of stuff, but I just think it would be advantageous to be, hey, if the number's the number and it's right, good.
So with your notes, because they're more recent, why don't you take the Falmouth part, and for our first meeting, if you can, what you get gleaned from that. Kevin, are you willing to do some legwork for another area?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about in this area or something different?
Oh, yeah, for finding out what
Yeah.
they're, what's successful, I'll happily take Plymouth.
I've reached out to Bourne before, I don't mind reaching back out to them.
So how about Bourne?
But Bourne doesn't have a human service.
Very sexy, very
Oh,
nice.
that was for the database.
I
Do they
think-
have a human services?
No,
We'll find out.
no.
Trusty computer from Kevin is very handy.
Don't they have a database?
That's the database, that's what I was
But
saying.
that's all,
That was what he reached out
I'm also
to.
happy to get in touch with Mashpee. I mean, I'm curious about Mashpee because it's modeled after Falmouth, but it's a one-person show.
It is a one-person.
The Human Services, they have a director, her name is Elsie Zaccardo.
Okay, do you want to do Bourne and I will do
Sure.
Plymouth?
Human resources or human services?
Hold on.
So they're two different things.
Oh, my fault, hold on, you're right.
That's okay.
Well, hold on a second, Human Resources Director, is that the person who does the hiring?
yeah.
Would they not know what the qualifications for that?
That would be an interesting
Only,
thing.
they would
If
have to, they would
I
need
got
to
what you
have
mean.
that staff,
Yeah,
that position on their staffing roster.
Gotcha.
If that position doesn't exist, they're gonna say, sorry, we can't help you.
that's true.
Okay,
Can I ask you again, when you said Mashpee is a one person?
Yes.
So they only have that
One
one person, which the council was explaining to us to try and get, right? One person that
One-
oversaw us.
Yeah, potentially.
And it wasn't the council, it was the appointments committee.
Oh, sorry, he's on the council.
Yes, he is.
All of them are, yeah.
You know, with reference to Mashpee, does the Wampanoag tribe, do they have their, like, I'm just throwing it out there, I'm just curious, do they have, I know they have programs mental health
They
and
do.
driving, all that kind of stuff. I'm just curious, what they have for,
I
Like-
have asked that question.
pardon me?
I know of a number of people in that tribe. They have,
How do they handle it? Because I've read a number of articles that they have issues. So
They
I'm
do.
just wondering.
some do, I mean, not as a tribe, of course, but.
No, I mean, but, yeah, but I'm just curious if they have designated, I'll call them staff, for lack of a better way to describe them, to, address those
I will
particular
happily
issues.
add that on to mine, so I'll do Plymouth and that, and the reason is, one, I have the connections.
But I
And
think it
two,
would be
it's
good,
it is very important because they're an important part of the community,
yeah,
but they function
they're
differently.
independent,
But last I knew, Mashpee Human Services did have has a sense, kind of has that under their umbrella or works collaboratively with.
I think it
That's
would be more
wonderful.
collaborative.
I'm just
but-
in my little mind, I always think outside the box, but I think
That's a good
when
point.
you're doing a proposal, if you will, and if you have to, for some strange reason, reference how extensively you research things. I think it would be important because they are an important element of Cape Cod to be able to say, if it's appropriate to say, and by the way, we did check with Mashpee and they have oversight of whatever that looks like. So.
So, I think that's a good phase one, but as I said, we want to turn up the heat here. So, let's organize a meeting of the subcommittee to, how long will it take? You already have your nets and they're pretty fresh. Kevin, how long what would you?
Well, you guys, she's gonna take Falmouth and Mashpee, you're gonna take Plymouth, so there's
And
really
Wampanoag.
there's really none for me to go to,
I
so.
don't think, how about
that's
we
fine.
start with Mashpee instead of, because that's, and
Because I want to see what others, because some things that work in one place won't work in another, so it'd be
And
nice
I'm
to know
happy
what they're
if you
doing.
want to
for
go to
comparison.
Mashpee
Do you wanna do
together. I
Mashpee?
just think we might want to,
If you have connections, then
I
you're the
don't, but I
easiest-
think that there's clinical questions that we'd want to ask. We could go together and get a sense of it, or I'm happy to go.
Again, here's one of these things where I'm confused. It seems like all we want right now is qualifications.
Right.
So
And
we
also
don't need
what's
anything
working.
more than just, hey, when you hired your director,
Yeah.
what were the qualifications that you looked for, that you put out in your job application?
Yeah.
That we could, and then we take those together, whether they're clinical or whether they're managerial or community oriented or whatever, they should all be on the same job application, right? So that's all to me, in my head, that's all we're looking for is just, what did you ask for the qualifications of your people who are applying for this job?
Wouldn't that stuff be on the website? Like, can't you go in and see
I
a
wouldn't have
form
thought
to
so.
fill out for a job?
I don't know.
or-
That's why I'm saying. I
form, but
mean,
not
you just can go to
estimate.
to the town, and whether you talk to human services, human resources director, whatever. When you put this out, first of all, is it somewhere that I could look at? Can I see this application so I
Right.
know what you asked for? Because we're about to do the same kind of thing in Barnstable, and we want to kind of see where you went, and maybe if some of that stuff would work for us too.
Well, you're brilliant on that little thing, and you can just go in there and print
On a
out.
laptop?
To Wendy's point, though, I think the doing the on-site visit, it's not just about reading what's on a job description,
Exactly.
okay? I think there's a value in having a discussion, because generally when you do a job description, at the top, you don't just talk about, you need to be able to type 50 words a minute. You talk about the community, and there in certain, you highlight some of the characteristics or the tasks that are gonna be that they're gonna be responsible for. So I think the value in having a discussion, whether it's Mashpee or Falmouth, they're gonna tell you, hey, when we hired Mary Lou, and actually, if you have a discussion with them, you could ask them, okay, this is what you thought you wanted, because what you think you want at the beginning and what you end up with, 2 years down the road, every job
The
description.
needs of the community are
change.
changing, and I think that,
And
to
different.
your point, I think that's why it's probably hard to find a specific job description. I mean,
Yes.
we can say, we think, that education-wise, we think it would be either an LICSW or an LMHC.
The education is
But-
the easy part.
But then, like at Falmouth Human Services, they just recently added a part-time clinician that speaks Portuguese, which is really big, but they identified a need in their community and then they put a proposal. So it's, and even, I interned there many, many years ago. But then since then, their services have really changed along the way.
I guess another question is, the two acronyms you used. I apologize.
Licensed mental health
Yep.
clinician and licensed
Independent.
social
Are those
worker.
requirements for the leader of this
No,
department?
there should
That's
not
what I
be.
mean.
There
I
should
don't
not
think.
be.
This is why I'm thinking.
They're not, you don't list them on a job description as requirements. You list them as,
On the resumes. Good points,
Uh,
yeah,
the term
perk,
escapes me.
they help.
benefits, was, yeah.
Wish list items, I'll
Yeah.
figure out the term, but they're not preferred, thank you. They're not mandatory requirements like a bachelor's degree or something like that. Preferred, and you bring up a great point about bilingual.
Yes.
Like in California, it may not be mandatory, but do you know how important it is to be able to speak Spanish?
10
It's
stars.
it's not mandatory because you really can't do that, but you bring up a great point that, a preference is
Multilingual.
yeah, call it whatever you want.
So, some of the things that I had is, put my glasses on. I write without my glasses, but I can't read. So,
That's a talent. I don't know that I could do either.
so some of the things we'd be looking for, which neither you nor I believe whenever we were researching these other areas, we're really looking for is in the process of when they were thinking about that position possibly, was what were some of the stumbling blocks? What format, not only did they use, but what format were they looking for? What did they actually encounter when they were using it? Also, do they have a copy of their applications? What did they have on there? Because if you say don't reinvent the wheel, we can probably glean some information, some things maybe we haven't thought of.
They won't legally. They can't give you the application.
They won't give you the application, but they might give you the blank application.
Yeah,
But the
job
application-
description.
Yeah,
The
it's
job-
just a job
Yeah,
description.
the job
But
description.
with that said, if you have a one-on-one with Mary Lou, the director, or whatever, I think it would be an interesting question to ask, like, okay, through the recruiting process, what did you get for applicants?
That's a good one.
Because that's gonna tell you, just because you float a position with all of whatever it is, what if the first go round they got no applicants, which is very possible,
True.
or the applicants, they determined after going through the initial screening process that not a one of them even came close. But I think that that's important to know, because for the town side, if they recruit for this position, you don't want them to come back and say, well, you did a great job and nobody applied. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just need to stack the deck in your favor so that you get the return on your investment for what you're submitting.
So some of the other things I thought we'd be looking for, or to understand, or at least touch on, is what services do they ask? It should be job description, services to be provided, and tasks to be responsible for. Again, that comes under job description. Also, how do they fund that position? Is it funded through taxes? Is it funded through grants? There's so many grants out there. There might be grants that would cover. There might
And you
not.
should have a grant writer as one of the things that you,
No, you don't think?
I'm just gonna, because I actually thought about this, I'm just gonna throw it out there. Grants are fabulous, okay?
Yeah.
But grants have a sunset date. So if my suggestion would be that this position is funded by the town, because if you're going to suggest that the position be funded with grant funding, that's great. Well, say the position's successful, but the grant funding's only for 3 years, then what happens?
I don't think that the position is funded by grants. I think, but the person who's in charge of this department in my position should be in a position where they know how to write a grant, so maybe they can get some extra money from the department.
So in the job description, you're suggesting that they have grant writing capability?
I agree.
Absolutely.
Again, that's what I
I would go
think,
with that.
that's what I thought we were doing now, is coming with a list of here are the things,
That's it.
and then we can go to anywhere we want, but as a committee, I think we should come up with some ideas of what we're looking for.
No, and I would agree with that. I
Grant
thought you
writing,
were going down the grant writing capability and grant funded is very different in
Yeah,
my
not
mind.
grant
But
funded.
actually,
Okay.
where I agree with the grant writing, I already had that
Okay.
down, that's been there for months. But also, grant funding, you might get a grant that would allow for 3 years to see if that position would be good for the town, and if it was, you don't think so?
No.
Okay,
But along that same line, but
yeah,
I'm on the other side.
that's
I
fine.
think I'll call it the full-time position, okay? I think that, that you should advocate that is a town authorized and funded position.
Okay.
So that person comes on board, they do a great job, but through that process, it's a little bit overwhelming. I would suggest that you seek grant funding to hire or fund a part-time position or an internship program, knowing that it can term out, but in the meantime, it's helpful, and you don't lose the number one person because their funding runs out.
Good point.
If you unfortunately have to jettison something, I think it would be better, not that it's ever better, but to have to lose the person that's not as pivotal as the number one staff person.
Yeah.
But I mean, work them together. So, you know, Mary Lou comes into the position, she's doing a great job, and she's going, man, there's a lot of work. And then you go out for grant funding and go through the intern, get an intern and get a part-time person, or like you were saying, they just recently and found they got that kind of thing. That would be my
And
suggestion.
they used to have interns, they're not doing that the
I
way
wonder
that
why.
they used to. Now they're more housing different partnerships, so somebody might come in a couple days a week for certain
Okay.
hours to help people with housing applications.
Oh, it's
somebody
program
else
specific.
Somebody else might come in and help people have access to applying to Mass Health.
Okay.
You know, so
But they're coming
they
from
are
an
the hub,
outside agency.
other agencies.
Okay, well, I guess that's a good
So-
plan.
so- Think of it as the hub. You know, the role is they pull together the services in the town of Falmouth. But my question would be, you know, how do we define, we're saying human service person, but what is it that we're looking for this person to do? Like, I think we should, you know, I mean, they were very clear in their mission statement at Falmouth Human Services. Then from there, you know, to what you were saying, Missy, like they've added clinicians along the way, and it isn't grant funded, it's taxpayer funded.
Yeah, it's
And they
town
have
budget.
an operating budget of like, I want to say it's over 500,000.
Could I ask you a question? In this meeting that you had, is there any indication that they would be willing to put a human services budget into play?
Are you talking about the appointments thing? Actually, I got the impression, and I don't know if they may not agree with me,
It was questioned.
that they are not, they are receptive, let me put it that way, that they are receptive, Seth?
Yes.
Was very receptive to adding, or if not, the budget this year's already
Determined.
determined.
So you're talking about next year.
But for next year, he indicated that they would be very receptive to adding that position to the staff, the
Which
town
is
staff.
why the deadline
that-
is September.
Right, but that's the salary. I'm talking about a budget. She's talking about a $500,000 budget for the town
didn't
of
offer
Falmouth.
anything more
Is
than
the
the
town,
salary.
right, is
For
the town,
personnel, for just their personnel.
Exactly.
Their operating budget was around 700,000.
so this is what I'm saying. If we're not, if that's not the plan of the town, we're asking for way too
Okay,
much.
so,
I guess
but-
that's what concerns me.
So, to your point though, so you have 85,000, that was kind of the number they threw out there for
Yeah.
the individual. We, I think, would be tasked with choreographing who that individual reports to. Did you get that?
Yes.
Okay, so that individual is gonna report to
Town
The
manager.
town manager.
But
And
we
the
talked
No,
about.
I think logically, that person, and that's all a different discussion, but I would say that person would report to was his name Chris, the
Yes.
Community Development Director?
yeah.
Okay,
If it goes
So-
over them, yeah.
with reference to your question, what does that really look like? They need a desk or a cubicle, and they're not, the probability that they're gonna have staff support is not there.
Mhm.
They need a computer, they need a phone,
It
And-
could be remote though,
pardon
it
me?
could be remote.
Yeah,
Oh, they could,
Like,
yes.
does the town have a grant writer? Like, are we adding a qualification that's something that we could use from the town?
For writing grants?
Yeah.
No, we're suggesting that the individual
Yes,
that
but-
would be hired
Yes,
would
but
have
what I'm
that
saying though is that
capability.
we're adding extra qualifications for something that we may already have.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah.
lovely, if they have that,
Like if the town, I don't know if the town does, what I'm saying
I
though
don't
is,
either.
if we do have it, can we just use them instead of having an extra qualification that is just not really needed since we have one?
It's a preference, okay, so when we interview Kevin, and tell us about yourself, and, you've read in the job description that a preference is,
Grant writing
Grant writing.
experience.
do you have any,
Bilingual.
or bilingual? Could you tell us what your experience is with reference to that? Well, you know what, if he's got a great, all these other fabulous things, and he's never written a grant, but you've written other things, you know what?
I did term paper in eighth grade.
You know what, I got asked that question, and I had never written
But
a grant.
how does
So-
someone's skills maybe generalize to grant writing?
Right.
Yeah, and that's my point. I got asked that question, and I sat right there and I said, I've never written a grant, but let me tell you what, when I was in my master's degree program, I wrote a project every semester. So if you're asking me what my abilities to put together, because a grant is really a concept paper.
It is.
Yes.
Okay, if you're asking me, do I have the ability to write a concept paper? I can tell you I do, because I did it for X amount of semesters, and honestly, that's how I answered the question.
Well, the thing
Because I'd
is,
never written one.
Did you get the job?
I did.
the thing is, I think we're getting too far down the line on that.
Yeah.
Because that would work its way out and that'd be resolved and that kind of thing. But some of the other things,
And we would be hopeful that there would be a grant available to apply for.
but I think who it reports to, and things like that, personnel, the operating budget, also program specific, grant writing, all those things. I think a lot of this and a lot more will probably come out if we can get some copies of what the job description.
But if the town would consider the position, I don't mean to trivialize your question in any way, Kevin, but if the town were to actively consider that position, all of those other things that you've mentioned, and they're relevant, okay, like where does the person sit? And, all that other kind of stuff, they're actually factored in, if you
They
will.
are.
Because unless you're asking for something out of the ordinary, and you bring up a great point, potentially working remotely, if this person is going throughout the community, are they gonna ask for a town car? I mean, if those aren't part of the equation, then the other things, the desk, the pens, the paper, they're just kind of like
Yeah,
all
yeah, and
incorporated.
we get that.
The
The other thing-
incidentals,
and
incidental.
As for staff, what we often find, so for instance, Kevin and I serve also on the HHDC. They have 2 staff members that attend, and if we have letters to go out, it's how much is it going, they may have a staff person they can
Yeah.
add on to. So I think that's something for the town, if they decide they want to do this position, what we do is we need to present what has phase 1, present what has happened in other areas, how it has transpired, what the values are of having that
There's
position
success
filled.
stories for
The
having
success stories.
blah, blah, blah.
The having, what benefits we feel that might be for here. But remember, you're offering to put the committee behind that person because a lot of times they're not going to have the connections that you would have in the media or Patrick would have with specifically with the homeless and, you know,
You have a
housing.
built-in volunteer staff, which
That's experienced.
which is very valuable.
Yeah.
To offset
Exactly,
potentially
that's the point I'm
some of
making.
the potential costs for the town, because he's such a good resource for, you know, the homeless, and, you know, you can't trivialize the
Yeah.
benefit of that.
Yeah, so I think that would all be worked out. But it's a matter of just doing phase one and then identifying what phase two is. But the reason why I put September as a deadline, the end of September, is because that was what was suggested for the starting work on the next budget.
Yeah.
So that's why it makes sense to have this, and that's why I kind of want to, as I said, light a fire under it. But, so I think we have some, plans there. Kevin, I love your idea about remotely. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Actually,
Also,
Patrick, but Kevin, sorry, I saw your pen go up, so I'm getting the two of you put together.
now $85,000, if that's the number they gave. Remember, we could also make the actual full-time position 70 and a $15,000 for a part-time to help that leader out.
Exactly.
So there's different ways we can play. That's why.
Not in human service, $70,000, that's not a livable wage.
Oh, and the 85,000 is all encompassing.
Yes, yeah.
With
Yes,
their
with
benefits and
benefits and
everything,
everything.
yeah.
All right.
And actually, we didn't throw that out there. That was,
Yeah,
somebody.
so, but I think to
yeah.
Missy's point, I think it would be good, so we can find out the specifics of what other agencies, because it's public knowledge.
And you say it's a range. It's a range, you know, Falmouth is blah, 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 Mashpee, or, you know, Plymouth, whatever. And then it's up to the council. We're not telling them, no, you have to pay them, you know, 80,000. Here's the range. Here's the range. This is what you're looking at. So, however your
Yeah.
union is and all that other kind of stuff, or your
Yeah.
benefit package.
It's not for us to
It's not for
decide.
us to
It's not for
decide.
us to decide. So, all we're doing is making a suggestion of what the value of what
Right.
such a position would be, and put it as a proposal for how it could possibly work. So, we need to come up with a Friday, it would seem. We'll do that. We'll communicate over the next couple of days and find something that works. I would like to do that sooner rather than later, but maybe give ourselves a week to put together what we have and any other connections we need to do.
I think maybe more than a week if we're gonna go visit places, right?
Okay, I thought you already had, okay, that's fine, so what do we
I have
got?
visited Falmouth, but I think visits are very important,
I
because you
agree.
see the
Well,
layout, you build relationships. I don't see this as, I'm gonna talk to Falmouth Human Services once.
Oh, I thought you
see
indicated
it
yours
as
was a couple weeks ago, but if it's further
It
than that,
was, it was a couple weeks ago, but what I'm saying is, that's a connection that we would wanna keep going, right?
Okay,
Because
that's fine.
as more questions come up, and they will, we wanna keep those
You
doors
want to
open.
be able to make that phone call if you need to.
So with the time frame, maybe a couple weeks, something like that for the first meeting to see where we are with it. I'm gonna move on. I think we've got quite a bit there that we've gone on to. I'm glad I didn't present what I had for what's now gonna be phase one so far, because I have a lot more to add to it.
Cheryl and her list.
Well, it's not so much a list, it's what I put together, but I thought I want to have this meeting tonight because I was absolutely positive, because of how keen people are to make this work, to get all the input. So, approval of the, by the way, Missy, you do an outstanding job on the minutes.
Thank you.
I had extra copies here. Has anyone not read them?
Oh, they're so stimulating. I just want to sit down
They're
and read them 4
accurate.
times.
So, for those who have read, who has not at that meeting, Patrick, I don't think you were at these two meetings, were you?
You, actually, the last one, I think you were here
I
very
wasn't at the
briefly.
leave,
You were at the last
Yeah.
one? Okay.
I do need your email address so I can
So,
send it.
Kim, were you at these last two meetings, March and May?
I think I missed the one in May, but not the one in March. I was there.
Okay, so for those who weren't at these, if I come around and mention you, say I was not there. So would somebody like to make a motion for the approval of the March minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve the March minutes.
Who seconds it, please?
I'll second.
Seconded by Kevin Matthews. All right, so all in favor say aye.
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 Anyone who was not here say abstain? And anyone has nay? No. Okay, so that passes. So
No, I missed May.
we're on May now. So now for the May minutes,
Okay,
is there a proposal for acceptance of the May minutes? Suzanne has proposed that. Is there a second?
I'll second once
Seconded
again.
by Kevin Matthews again. For those who were present for the May minutes, say aye.
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 For those who are not present, say abstain. Abstain. Okay, and for those who were not, who are saying no, if there's any nays. So we've got, there's a quorum on each of those, so those pass. Update on membership, I know of 2 other people who are thinking about applying, but we'll see what happens, I'll have to chase that. But there's nobody that I've been notified of. Patrick, I'm so glad, I'm sorry for how long it took.
It's okay.
I apologize profusely, but you're such a valuable member, we're so glad to have you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So there's no update on membership.
Other than the fact that I know there's 2 other people that want to apply.
Do we have a limit?
Our limit is 7. We have no alternates. A lot of the committees have 3 places, 3 places for alternates. We have 7, our quorum is 4. So the information gathering and cataloging, I think we've covered a lot of that. That'll come further down when we deal with these other things. We don't really have that one. We don't have a guest speaker tonight.
You know, at any point, if you want to combine things
Okay.
for like moving forward, if you think it would be appropriate, we can do that so that they're
Okay.
not listed
Okay.
individually.
I just had it this way so it's less work for you.
Okay.
You know, it's a template.
It
And
is, but I can delete things.
I'm fine with that. Just point out what you deleted. Is there any public comment? Open for public comment? I'll leave it open for the rest of the meeting. Okay, other items not reasonably anticipated by the chair. It's June and it's time to do elections. So I have talked to Kim. She's interested in continuing with vice chair if people are interested in that. Missy, I'd love to keep you for clerk because you do a really hard task with those minutes.
Yes, absolutely. We appreciate that.
So,
I just have to ask, did we need to have the election discussion on the agenda?
no, I checked, thank you for clarifying. I wanted to make sure as well, no, we do not, it comes out, it can come up on unlisted. I checked with the town today, or it can come up on matters not reasonably anticipated.
Okay.
If everybody wants to continue in their role, why don't we just go ahead and...
I don't know, is that a motion?
You have to ask,
Oh, I do.
I mean, if
Sounds like
people
work.
need to ask.
Yeah, so that's a
I
motion by.
make a motion that we just go ahead and keep everybody we have if they want the position.
Okay, so you would remain,
Chair,
Chair.
Probably for my last year, but we'll see where it goes. Yeah.
and then Kim will be.
Kim, vice chair.
Did you want something?
You want to do quick?
You want to be princess?
I don't know if I want to be princess.
Right
but,
now, there's a motion
you know,
on the table.
I would like to hold off and think about it because I didn't realize this would be on the table
We should
tonight.
be doing them on June because they has to go to, that's the time for doing it. But we have a motion on the table. We have to carry for the motion. So is there a second on that motion?
Okay, we should be doing it in June, but what happens if you don't? If we elect, because Wendy would like to have an opportunity to contemplate
Well, do you want to run?
something.
I don't know if I do. I didn't realize that this was discussion
What do
tonight.
you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, come
Well,
on.
I'm just saying, whether she chooses to run or not, if she'd like the opportunity to contemplate it, I'm just wondering, is June could we put it off to July?
We'd have to put it off to August.
So what? Everyone
It's-
remains in their current position till August, is that correct, procedurally?
I believe it's supposed to be, do you know the answer to that?
What?
Do you know the answer to the elections? I know you attend a lot.
I can't hear you.
You serve on a number of committees, correct?
Kevin?
Yeah, what's your
You serve,
question?
you serve on a number of the committees, correct?
I don't think I would know. I wouldn't know what the bylaws are for that.
Say it again.
You serve on a number of committees, correct?
I was just on conservation.
Okay, I thought so. So June is the time when we do the elections.
No, July.
Yeah, typically
July?
that's the
Oh.
time.
First
we do
meeting
that,
in
yeah.
July is when you do it.
I was always told meeting in June.
No, you can talk about it, but it's done
Yeah, because last
officially
year it
in
was the
July.
first meeting that I attended, which was July.
Well, that's perfect. Agreed? Okay, so in the July agenda, I will put an item that says,
Election of officers.
okay. Everybody okay with that?
Sure.
We'll have to move the date
Why? Oh,
because
because you're not gonna be here.
I'm gonna be in England.
Can't we just do you like an abstention?
You need to have either the chair or vice chair open it. I think that, we'll have to, well, I'll change the date to
Okay.
sometime we can be there.
When are you going?
I'll be on a plane,
I know, when are you going?
8th,
Oh, yeah, that's the
What?
day of the meeting would be
Yeah.
the 8th.
yeah.
8th through,
I'll be back on the 14th.
okay, so we could, whatever that following Tuesday is, we could,
I can try to
but
get
that
it.
might actually work out better and give the subcommittees and everybody
Yeah.
extra time to work on whatever it is they have to work on,
Okay.
okay? So,
Meanwhile, I have to ask, because we have a motion on the table. Suzanne, are you willing to withdraw your motion?
I am willing to withdraw my motion.
Okay. All right, so we will put that on a different date in July.
So are we tentative for the 15th? Is that what we're thinking?
We have to check. Kevin, can you check your, on your computer, town calendar, Tuesday dates that have 5:30?
Sure. Town calendar.
Right.
what did you do?
Fell on a piece of sign that was sticking out of the summit. What's on?
That's my biggest fear is I age.
Website's
I'm so
slow.
Oh, yeah, I'm not surprised.
Spinning
clumsy. That is my
wheels
fear, like,
have
I'm gonna
to
trip on something, take my
Try
front
again.
teeth out, because I'm horribly clumsy.
Mhm.
And
It's just, I live alone, so everything is such a problem. You know what I mean? It's just, everything's hard.
There we go. So you want July
Mhm.
on Tuesday. You know, there's nothing on the 1st.
Okay, we can do
There
it
are
on-
1, 2, 3, 4 meetings on the 15th.
Oh.
Nothing on that July 1st.
Okay, so why don't I see if I can get it on the 1st?
but what are the 4 meetings? I'm just curious.
Conservation Commission, Historical Commission, Airport Commission meeting, Municipal Water Supply Board.
And historical meets at 4 o'clock in this office, and it's usually 2 to 3. 2 to 3
Airport
hours.
is 4 o'clock, Barnstable Municipal
Municipal.
is 5 o'clock.
What about the 22nd?
1, 2, 3, 4 board meetings. Board of Health, 3, Board of Health at 4, Conservation Committee at 6:30, Waterways Committee at 7.
That's,
So
Yeah.
the first has nothing, and then the 29th has nothing on Tuesdays. So that would be, probably the first would be your date,
or the 29th.
or the 29th.
Wendy, what do you want?
Well, I think it's up to everybody,
Yeah, princess.
what works for everybody.
I think a lot, I mean, the first, I would look at the 29th. You know, that's July 4th, is that Friday?
Oh, you're right,
Yeah.
You know, so maybe
That's why
that's
there's no
why.
meetings on the 1st.
that's right.
Hey, Rose, that's just
Well,
fine.
there's
Yeah, I can
meetings
do
on
whatever.
the Wednesday too. In fact, our HHDC is on Wednesday,
Which one?
the 2nd of
The
July.
2nd? But that doesn't, yeah, that doesn't interfere with it first.
Well, let's see, at the 29th though, I mean, depending on what your the subcommittee is, and you're gonna be gone, so why, I mean, you have some prep work to do, mother of the bride, that maybe the 29th would be
Yeah, the
good for
29th might,
you.
29th might be good for the prep work.
Yeah,
Okay,
so,
I'll check out both, because sometimes there's actually, can you check, are you still on the calendar?
Mhm.
Can you go up into the town clerks and click here? Top of the page, second line down, right-hand
You're
side.
gonna find a department. Department.
It's on the calendar. If you bring up the town calendar, it's at the top.
You mean the official meeting notices? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, let me show you.
All right, so what are you looking for?
Anything on the
Of course, these are not in
Do
any
any
kind
of
of
those dates, all
agenda.
those
the
dates work
first
for
and,
you?
first and the
There's
29th.
nothing at
days.
7 o'clock. Nothing in July on this
Is
list.
that Tuesday?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, that should work.
Yeah, there's nothing in July on this list.
Okay, so we're good.
Is it, okay, well, you know what, I guess if you ask, then that you get first preference, right?
I hope so. It doesn't always work that way.
We can be optimistic,
Cross both those fingers.
no problem with that.
Okay, so I'll call and let them know. All right, in that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Seconded by Kim.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? Any abstentions?
And if that's 7:43, no, 6:43,
43.
It stopped raining.
run up there.
We'll get out the car quick.